behalf of Rising Asia Foundation and Rising Asia Journal, I very warmly extend a welcome to His Excellency MOULY IENG, Senior Minister from the Royal Government of Cambodia, who I have known now since the 1990s, since I think I first met him in 1991, just after the Paris peace agreements were signed in Cambodia. And then I've continued being in touch with him throughout the Yuen mandated elections in that country. Excellency MOULY is a valuable, let's say, he's an archive. He is a living repository, being one of the 12 signatories to the 1991 Paris peace agreements, which he signed alongside King, at the time, Chief of State, or rather President Norodom Sihanouk, Prime Minister Hun Sen at the time of the State of Cambodia government, and several other influential Cambodians. His Excellency MOULY is a scholar, a historian, a very enlightened political personality, and a participant in the peace process of the country. And he's played a significant role in steering the country back to the road of democracy, press freedom, and integration within ASEAN and the region. His Excellency Mr. MOULY IENG is currently a senior minister in charge of special missions and the chair of the National AIDS Authority of Cambodia. He was the architect of the Cambodian government's policy to fight against HIV/AIDS, leading Cambodia to reach its targets by 2017. Mr. MOULY IENG has devoted much of his life to serving the Cambodian people through various posts he's held in the Royal Government of Cambodia. He was a member of the Supreme National Council of Cambodia and one of the 12 Cambodian signatories to the 1991 Paris peace agreements that led to the establishment of a new Cambodia with a multi-party system of democracy. He was also the Minister of Information from 1993 to 1998 and was instrumental in authoring the press law for the freedom of press in Cambodia. And for many years, Cambodia was perhaps one of the freest, had one of the freest press laws in Southeast Asia. His awards include a degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, by the Armstrong University in the United States of America, the Grand Cross of the Royal Order of Cambodia, and the Medal of National Merit awarded by His Majesty, the King, and the French Commander de la Région d'Honneur by President Jacques Chirac of France. I have a bit of a hint about what he might talk, so I will just give one sentence. Being a scholar and a historian who has a good grasp of history in the longue durée, his talk will take us from the past to the present. So with that, I very warmly welcome His Excellency MOULY IENG to kindly come forward and deliver his distinguished annual Rising Asia Lecture for the year 2022. I just might add that this is the second edition of our distinguished annual lecture series. The first was last year, which was delivered by the Indonesian ambassador, Dinopati Jalal, who currently heads the foreign policy community of Indonesia. So with that, over to you, Senior Minister MOULY IENG.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta, for your kind word of introduction. Good evening, good afternoon, maybe good morning to all our friends who are listening to us now. To begin, I would like to state that what I am expressing here reflects only my own comments, my own views, and my opinion as a private citizen of Cambodia who has served this nation for many decades. I would like to thank the Rising Asia Journal, especially Dr. Harish Mehta, the editor-in-chief, who invited me to deliver the Rising Asia Foundation Distinguished annual lecture on the issues that are relevant to the current dispute between superpower over world supremacy. I have chosen to talk about this topic because I perceive some concern in the West that Cambodia is aligned with China, antagonizing the US and the West in their competition for hegemony. From my point of view, I will tell the public what interests Cambodia must align either with Cambodia or with China or America and its allies. Let us examine the essence of the Cambodian government and understand the interests of Cambodia in regional geopolitics. Is it true that Cambodia has no interest in Western democracy, nor in the respect of human rights? To answer this question, we must first take a deep dive into Cambodia history. When I was a school boy, I was taught that the land of Cambodia was created or formed by the Mekong River that had brought fertile soil into the sea. Little by little, the land emerged from the water and became an island on which grows a tree named Tlok. The island was called Tlok Island or Kok Tlok, and finally known as Tlok Country or Noko Kok Tlok. You see in the picture one, I don't have the tree picture of the tree, but I can have some fruit and the leaf here. According to the legend part of the Khmer Royal Chronicle, before his death, Lord Buddha visited Noko Kok Tlok and told his disciple Ananda in the form of prophecy that a great and powerful empire will rise. Noko Kok Tlok was recorded as a Funon by the Chinese account. The Funon is called by Cambodian as Noko Kok Tlok. Here you see picture two. There were only two at that time in the picture. In the first century, there are only Funan and the neighboring country called Champa. There are no other nation at that time. The legend says that an Indian Brahmin named Kaudinja, whom the Chinese call Huntien, came from India and married the local queen named Soma. The couple found the first dynasty of Cambodian rulers in the first century AD. In the Cambodian legend, Kaudinja is known from generation to generation as Pratao. And Ningnia, the Queen Soma as a Ningnia, daughter of Naga. Naga is the seven-head serpent or the seven-head snake who live deep inside the ocean. For Khmer, the story of Pratao and Ningnia tell the story of the birth of Khmer land, culture, and civilization. In April 2022 this year, Prime Minister Hun Sen inaugurated a giant statue of Pratao and Ningnia. This is the largest copper statue Cambodia has ever had in her history. The statue represents Queen Soma Ningnia leading King Kaudinja Pratao in a journey to the depth of the ocean to meet her parent and request permission to marry him. To this day, it has seeped into Cambodian tradition. In concluding the final ceremony of a wedding, the groom must hold on to the end piece of cloth called bai, probably a derivation from Indian sari, worn on the bride who lead the groom around in circle 3 times before entering together into a private room where groom and bride are allowed to finally consummate their marriage. I was following the same when I got married, the same ceremony. So see here, the picture number 3, you see the Queen Soma followed by King Kaudinja their their face look to the sea because she want to bring the king to the sea to see her parent for to request for permission uh, for the wedding. Second point, Cambodia is the land of gold, or Cambodia we call Suvarnabhumi. In George Sedet's book, The Indianized State of Southeast Asia, Emperor Asoka sent Buddhist monk Sona and Uttara for the religious mission in the 3rd century BC to Suvarnabhumi, the land of gold. Many countries in the region may claim that they hold the site of the land of gold or Suvarnabhumi, but they do not have any proof to support their statement. In contrast, over 2 decades ago, a group of Khmer scholars led by Dr. Wongsotara found a stone inscription tablet on Suvarnabhumi in Boset district of Kampong Speu province in Cambodia. Boset district is my circumscription where I have to work with the local authority to promote a good governance in that place. The stone inscription can be translated into English as follows. The great King Isan Varman is full of glory and bravery. He is the king of kings who rule over Suvarnabhumi. Who rule over Suvarnabhumi until the sea, which is the border, while the king of neighboring country or neighboring state honor his order to their head. The stone inscription clearly demonstrates that Cambodia is the true location of Suvarnabhumi. The inscription can be viewed in Phnom Penh National Museum. You see in the picture here, picture number 4, the word circle in red, in yellow, mean in the old Khmer means Suvarnabhumi. So there are no other place who have that kind of proof to tell the world that Cambodia is the land of gold. We don't have much now, but at that time, there must be a lot. The third point I want to make is the blood and history. Because a particular point that differentiates Khmer from other people is blood, according to Professor Jean Bernard of the French Academy. His book, Le sang et l'histoire, or Blood and History, states hematologists have confirmed the originality of the Cambodian people by recognizing in the blood of many Cambodians a special hemoglobin E. Hemoglobin E is really the hemoglobin of the Khmer population, he added. Since 1957, several surveys have specified the frequency of an abnormal hemoglobin E in the population of Southeast Asia. The second part concerns the place where the old zero number is found. Early in the 20th century, an inscription was discovered on a stone slab in the ruin of a 7th century temple in a place called Sambo on Mekong in Cambodia. The inscription states the Saka era had reached 605 on the 5th day of the waning moon. See picture 5 here, where the dot in the center to the right of the invented 9 looking sign, which is a 6 in Old Khmer, is the oldest zero ever discovered. The zero in the number 605 is the earliest zero we have found, wrote Ami Axel, the researcher at the Boston University. He adds, we know that the Saka era began in AD 78. So the year of the inscription in our calendar is 605 plus 78 equal AD 683. Since the time predates the Arab Empire as well as Kuala Zero by 2 centuries, Sedais were able to prove that the zero is in fact an Eastern invention. We don't say that it's Cambodian invention. It is believed to have come to the West via Arab trader and was popularized in Europe through the work of Fibonacci of the famous sequences of numbers published in 1202. Inscription key 127 is now located in the National Museum in Phnom Penh. Now, talking about Angkor period from the 9th to the 14th century. Beginning in the 1st century, the Khmer king had ruled over a vast territory in the Indochina Peninsula. The Khmer king who had ruled Cambodia during the Angkor period were the builders of monuments or temple that they dedicated either to Lord Shiva or Lord Buddha. At those times, the Khmer practiced Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism. So I cite here only three most famous kings only. First king Jayavarman II, 802 to 850. He was the first founder of the Angkor Empire that had lasted for 600 years. Second, King Jayavarman II, 1113 to 1150. He was the architect of the Angkor Temple and was a great builder of monuments, a religious reformer, and a spectacular warrior. You see in picture 6, the picture of Angkor. If you come to Cambodia, don't forget to visit the site. It's very important. Third, King Jayavarman II, 1181 to 1219, brought the Khmer Empire to its apogee. His reign was recognized as the most prosperous and marked by the edification of temple and a very extensive and popular public service. Under his reign, Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism coexist harmoniously. See here, picture number 7 is Bayon. Bayon temple, it looked like we call a mountain temple. On the top, you can see the face of Brahma. When you visit the temple in Cambodia and you see the temple with the head of Brahma on the top, it means the temple was built under King Jayavarman II in the 12th century. And the picture number 8, you can see the map of the capital of Angkor at that time. From the Angkor Empire time, now we come to the decline of Khmer Empire and the dark period of the Khmers. After King Jayavarman II, the power of the Khmer Empire weakened. The 5 successive kings who had reigned from 1218 to 1336 each recognized the beginning of the decline. However, the king and their entourage continued to live in luxury and led lavish life. The economy deepened into crisis, and unclear succession plan to the throne gave rise to internal wars between princes. The incessant wars destroyed the Khmer Empire. Cambodia lost both her population and all her wealth, which caused her to abandon Angkor as a capital in 14 1932. Cambodia plunged into a period of annexation where the two more powerful neighbors, Vietnam in the east and Thailand in the west, annexed a significant part of her territory. The 17th and 18th century mark a dark period of Cambodian history. The Khmer king, Ong Duong and Norodom, turned to the French colonialists for help and protection at the cost of national independence. When the French authority offered Cambodia her independence in the mid-20th century, they believed this Southeast Asian nation might continue to stay under the sphere of influence of the Western world. So, come to the reign of King Norodom Sihanouk. Sihanouk ruled Cambodia from 1953 as a head of state 19 to 1970. When talking about post-World War II Cambodia, one cannot afford to forget about King Norodom Sihanouk. Cambodia, under his leadership, managed to gain independence from France in 1953 and enjoyed peace for at least 15 years. Unfortunately, Sihanouk was deposed from power by his own general Lon when he traveled abroad. Again, this plunged the country into decades of war. Samdech Sihanouk joined the Khmer Rouge while in exile and thus helped them win the war against Lon regime. Now come to recent period. On April 17, 1975, the Khmer Rouge seized power in Phnom Penh. During their reign of terror, the Khmer Rouge had killed over 2 million innocent Cambodians. In addition, they started a destructive war with neighboring Vietnam. In retaliation and in response to the call for help from a group of Khmer rebels, of which the current Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen was among their leaders, Vietnam, with the support of the USSR, forcefully attacked the Khmer Rouge and invaded Cambodia in December of 1978. On January 7, 1979, the Khmer Rouge fled Phnom Penh to regroup their troops at the border with Thailand. A new government was set up in Phnom Penh and another new war began. One side was fighting for national liberation from Vietnamese occupation. I was at that side at that moment. The other side was fighting to safeguard Cambodian people against the Khmer Rouge genocidal regime. A coalition named the Coalition Government of Democratic Cambodia, CGDK, was formed in 1982. The CGDK occupied the seat of Cambodia at the UN. This tripartite government had fought against Vietnamese troops and the Hun Sen government, which controlled Phnom Penh and a vast territory of Cambodia for several years before reaching the common ground for political solution. In the end, the Cambodia conflict was settled by the signing of the Paris Peace Agreement on October 23, 1991. To implement the agreement, the UN was given power to organize a general election to elect a constituent assembly. The general election of 1993 under the UN established a new constitution upholding a pluralistic system of democracy. The new constitution also restored the monarchy and allowed Samdech Sihanouk to be made king again for the second time. Under the pretext that the Paris Peace Agreement was not properly implemented, the Khmer Rouge continued fighting the war against the new royal government, led first by the two prime ministers, Prince Norodom Sihanouk, son of King Sihanouk, and Samdech Hun Sen, and later by Prime Minister Hun Sen alone until the end of 1998. In the end, thanks to his win-win policy, the Prime Minister succeeded in rallying all remaining Khmer Rouge forces to permanently lay down their arms and restore full peace by the end of 1998. Look at the picture 9. You see Ivor at the second from the left screen signing the document while other signatory discuss among themselves. And at the picture number 10, you see me also standing next to Prime Minister Hun Sen at the right screen. And while on the podium, Mr. Akashi deliver his speech, and while King Sihanouk looking at him. Now coming to Cambodia in regional geopolitics. The fundamental principle that have guided the action of post-war government in Cambodia are enshrined in the 1993 Constitution. In domestic policy, Cambodia strives for a liberal multi-party democracy, the rule of law, respect for human rights, and a market economy. Peace and political stability are sine qua non of every field of development, including the development of democracy in Cambodia. Most Cambodians see peace as the basis of any development and a primary element for the defense of human rights. Therefore, on all public buildings in Cambodia now, signs say "Thank you, peace" throughout the country. Because without peace, we don't have we don't have anything to do, even the respect of human rights. Given past experiences, we would very much like to see democracy as a safe for Cambodia rather than Cambodia being safe for democracy. We prefer reform rather than revolution. Under the constitution, Cambodian politicians of all political shades are rightfully able to participate in the development of democracy, joining in the election, accepting or disputing election result, and at the end, always resulting to the supreme verdict of the people. This is significant in that if any political party is suspicious of any election fraud, that party can appeal to a higher authority. In the past, Cambodia has amended the election law numerous times, with the composition of the National Election Committee often being changed. This is the right way to develop democracy. For most Cambodians who have lived under previous and several regimes before, there is a firm conviction that the current regime is on the side of democracy. In foreign policy, the constitution prohibits Cambodia from entering any alliance with any foreign power, except participation in United Nations operation. In addition to the provision of the constitution, Cambodia must abide by the ASEAN Charter, where Cambodia was admitted as a full member of this Southeast Asian organization in 1999. In recent years, the world has seen China progress in all areas: technological, economic, political, and military. In just a few decades, China had jumped from a third country status to the second world economic power. With its newly developed power, China is becoming more assertive. The Chinese mark their presence all over the world. The One Belt, One Road initiative project launched by the Chinese government was the last drop that made the cup overfill. The emergence of the new Chinese power has been threatening the United States and its allies who ultimately made a block to prevent China from advancing further. A new Cold War mentality reappears in the West. The United States has accused China of being an autocratic communist state that threatens the world democracy. To see if China really poses a threat to the world democracy, we should ask questions to the three largest democracies in the world in terms of population: India, America, and Indonesia. Professor Kishore Mubabuni's book titled Hey China One provide the answer. I quote, if Chinese communism is a threat to democracy, all three should feel threatened. Some American policymakers feel threatened, yet if one were to ask either Prime Minister Modi of India or President Joko Widodo of Indonesia or any of other of his senior or their senior colleague, whether Indian democracy or Indonesian democracy feel threatened by Chinese communism, they would be puzzled by this question. Since both India and Indonesia are geographically much closer to China and have many more links with China, they understand China well. Certainly, the rise of Chinese power is a matter of concern to them. But Chinese communist ideology is of no concern to them. They see no desire or effort on the part of Chinese leaders to export or promote communism. In this respect, the attitude and behavior of the Chinese Communist Party is the exact opposite of the former Soviet Communist Party. End quote. Cambodia and other members of ASEAN don't feel any threat from China. That is why we conduct business with China without fear. To my knowledge, the Chinese have never asked or demanded from Cambodia to enter an alliance with them against any power in the world. It is unfortunate that some Western powers have spread rumors that Cambodia is secretly allowing China to set up a naval base in Ream. The naval base in Sihanouk province is far too small, and the depth of our sea is way too short for large navy vessels to navigate effectively. If Western pundit characterize the ongoing contest between China and the US as a contest between democracy and autocracy in a new Cold War, we must consider whether the current Chinese regime is genuinely autocrat without popular support, and the Chinese economy is not capable of improving the living condition of the Chinese people. It is true that the goal of any government in the West is to preserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all its citizens. Cambodia, as well as other nations like China, resort to the same purpose of peace, freedom, and the happiness of its people. As we live, as we live in an increasingly dangerous world because of crises that break out everywhere without adequate solution, here is the place that, as a neutral country under our constitution, Cambodia take in regional geopolitics. First, on Myanmar. In principle, Cambodia should not interfere in the internal business of Myanmar, as the ASEAN Charter prohibits any ASEAN member to do so. To help address the crisis created by the military coup on February the 1st, 2021, Samdech Hun Sen Prime Minister went to Naypyidaw to try to convince the military leader to implement the 5-point consensus (FPC) in January of 2022. This 5-point consensus was agreed upon by ASEAN leaders on April 21st, 2021. General Min Aung Hlaing, Commander-in-Chief, the author of the coup, attended the meeting and approved the 5-point consensus. Some analysts have criticized the visit of Cambodian Prime Minister to Naypyidaw as recognizing the military regime. In fact, by inviting General Min Aung Hlaing to the Jakarta meeting in April of 2021, ASEAN leaders already by de facto recognized the military regime. This was long before the visit of the Cambodian Prime Minister. As the chair of ASEAN, Cambodia is willing to help end the crisis. What Cambodia needs to achieve is to put an end to the violence, to obtain a ceasefire for humanitarian aid to be distributed to the people in need. And once a cessation of violence or a ceasefire is observed, then political dialogue can start. However, without contribution and cooperation from the Myanmar party themselves, any reasonable resolution of the conflict cannot be reached. It is a Myanmar own problem and a Myanmar own solution. We just can help only. In recent months, the chair of ASEAN Cambodia has noticed very little progress on the Myanmar issue and has expressed disappointment. The military regime not only ignores the goodwill of ASEAN, but persists to use violence against opponents, especially with the execution of 4 opposition activists. At the next summit meeting, ASEAN will assess the Myanmar situation and will make further decisions. Second, Ukraine. Cambodia strictly respects the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all nations, calling for the respect for international law and the United Nations Charter. Regarding the situation in Ukraine, Cambodia clearly stands with Ukraine against the Russian invasion. Cambodia co-sponsored the resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. She voted yes for the resolution among 141 countries that include the US, Europe, Japan, and others, while China, Vietnam, India, and more abstained. Samdech Prime Minister Hun Sen gave his recommendation to Cambodian officials, telling them to explain to the Russians that what they did in Ukraine is contrary to the Cambodian foreign policy, which condemned the use of force to attack another country and annex its territory. Cambodia stands at the side of peace. Cambodia joined other nations to call for a cessation of hostility and for the creation of an environment for peaceful resolution to the conflict. Through wartime experience, Cambodia will not encourage any party to intensify the war, but in contrast to find means and methods to negotiate peacefully. Third, on Taiwan. Cambodia recognizes only one China, the People's Republic of China. Cambodia always considered Taiwan as province of the People's Republic of China. Most Cambodians believe that China does not need to invade Taiwan if the latter does not proclaim independence. Taiwanese are Chinese, and Chinese blood does not need to spill. The world is to greatly benefit is both sides are encouraged to negotiate for the formula of one country, two systems. Unfortunately, it is very regrettable that certain Western power, which by public declaration undertake the idea of respecting the one China policy, yet are in the process of pushing Taiwan to proclaim it independent by supplying arms or sending high-level officials to Taiwan. The last visit of U.S. Speaker Pelosi to Taiwan in August of 2022 is an example. Fourth, on Korea Peninsula. Cambodia is a friend of both Korea, North Korea, DPRK, and South Korea, ROK, have their embassy in Phnom Penh. Like other members of ASEAN, Cambodia stands against the proliferation of nuclear arms and undeniably underline the importance of peaceful dialogue among all partners concerned. Cambodia would like to realize the lasting peace in denuclearized Korea Peninsula. Like other ASEAN members, Cambodia was very concerned with the recent surge of the PRK intercontinental ballistic missile testing and ballistic missile launches. Fifth, on Indo-Pacific. The world shift interest to the Asia-Pacific. Rivalry between the United States and China have intensified in the Indo-Pacific region. In addition to the United States, some powerful countries such as Japan, Australia, EU, and France, for example, have rolled out each of their own Indo-Pacific initiative or strategy. As a small country unable to take sides, Cambodian Prime Minister has recommended three perspectives in which any Indo-Pacific initiative strategy would be welcome. First, the initiative or strategy that lead to peace and cooperation. Second, the initiative or strategy that is not aimed against any country. Third, the initiative or strategy that considers the centrality of ASEAN, as Cambodia is one of its members. In fact, ASEAN has set out the objective and principle of the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific AOIP, which provides a guide for ASEAN engagement in the wider Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean region. Six, South China Sea. Cambodia fervently wishes that the South China Sea remain a sea of peace, stability, and prosperity. In 2002, under the chair of Cambodia, ASEAN was able to adopt a Declaration of Conduct, DOC, a document establishing the basic principle and a common norm for all parties to handle the South China Sea issue. It was the first political document signed by China and ASEAN countries regarding the dispute. According to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Prasokhon, Cambodia is working hard with other ASEAN members for the adoption of the Code of Conduct this year, 2022. The Code of Conduct is an updated version of DOC. It is intended to reduce the risk of conflict. Now I come to the conclusion. Cambodia has experienced both greatness and darkness in her long history. The kingdom has felt pain of losing vast amount of territory and has understood that the use of force is never a good solution to settle problems between nations. Cambodia has highly valued national independence, national sovereignty, and freedom. the primary goal of our government is to care for the fate of the Cambodian people. All actions are taken to lift the Cambodian people out of poverty. When Phnom Penh was liberated from the Khmer Rouge on January 7, 1979, there were only around 70 inhabitants in the city. The infrastructure was a state of disrepair. Running water and electricity was almost non-existent. In 1979, Cambodians resumed their life from the year zero. Cambodians had to rebuild everything from the destruction and were the poorest people in the world. Now, little by little, the Khmer have almost caught up with the two neighbors, Laos and Vietnam. Cambodia has reached a lower middle income status since 2015 and is on the way to attain upper income status by 2030. So you can see the picture 12 about the empty city of Phnom Penh, and then the picture number 13, the Phnom Penh today, in the street of Phnom Penh today, at night, where the street is full of cars. So this, and also the picture number 14, a new island we call Diamond Island, and the last picture show the newly built expressway from Phnom Penh to Kampong Sao. That is the last realization that we have made to build the new Cambodia. Thank you. I have finished my presentation. If you have any question, I welcome them, and I wait for your understanding.
Well, I thank you profusely, Excellency MOULY IENG, for this tour de force that you have presented us with. And before I continue, I just wanted to welcome a couple of other friends who've joined. I missed them to welcome them earlier. And one of them is our editorial board, one of our editors, Professor Ang Cheng Guan of the Singapore. So, Excellency MOULY,
Yes.
what do I say? Your talk has indeed taken us from the past to the present.
Yes.
Right from the point of the Indian roots, you've taken us to Kaundinya, the Indian prince
Yes.
who arrives and marries a Khmer princess. But,
Yes.
you know, this is legend, and it's interesting, it's folklore, and it helps to work as a glue. It helps, folklore is always interesting. You've also then taken us to the idea that the zero, shunya, the
Yes.
zero was an invention,
Yes.
not really in India, but it was predated by the Cambodian invention, which you have
Exactly.
highlighted through some very, very current research done by scholars as recently as I think a couple of years ago. And I find that absolutely fascinating and an area for deeper questioning. I hope our listeners will talk not only about the Indian roots, but also the how the zero has moved across the waters. You've then, of course, taken us to the history. You've talked about Angkor Wat, its great builder, Surya Varman II, the consolidation of a strong agricultural economy, and in later years following regional warfare, a certain neglect sets in, and Cambodia begins to go downhill because of, again, it begins to neglect its agricultural resources and leading to conquest by neighbors and the coming of Sukhothai. Then you've marched on to the troubled Cold War history when Cambodia was bombed by the United States under, we must thank Henry Kissinger for his bombing of Cambodia and Laos. uh,
Yeah.
a shameful record of bombardment of neutral countries, despite King Sihanouk's, Prince Sihanouk's entreaties to the world that Cambodia is a neutral country, which is ignored by the United States and its Cold War mentality, and it drops the heavy amount of ordnance on neutral Cambodia, sucking Cambodia in, and Laos into the Vietnam War. As a result of which, we see the rise of the Khmer Rouge. We see King Sihanouk turning slightly anti-America, who wouldn't after such bombing, and then which leads to a pro-American lobby, a cabal of Khmer officers led by General Lon Nol, who topple the neutral
Yeah.
Sihanouk when he's away on a vacation overseas. And then the Khmer Rouge comes in, it is gathering steam in the rural areas, and then the Khmer Rouge eventually overthrows the Lon Nol regime. Uh, to bring the country under this great destructive genocide. And eventually, when people like Hun Sen and others and Hem Samrin, Cambodians who fled across the border to Vietnam, they return with Vietnamese and Soviet help, as you pointed out, and they eject the Khmer Rouge from power. But that's where the story really begins, because now the Americans and the Khmer Rouge have become allies of a kind in preventing Cambodia from genocide. And so there's a long civil war between the Hun Sen's forces of state of Cambodia on the one hand, and the Khmer Rouge, an American-backed,
Coalition government.
which is fighting in the countryside, which eventually leads to a lot of destruction and the initiation of a peace plan in Paris, in which you, Excellency MOULY, were a key participant since 1991. In 1991, that is eventually signed. The photographs show you as one of the signatories, and then it leads to an election, and then you come in once the election is peacefully conducted under Yuen auspices. A new government is formed in which you play a very strong role. And then, of course, then you've gone on to the foreign policy of Cambodia, which is the current policy, which is still based around neutrality and anchored in the ASEAN Association of Southeast Asian Nations charter, in conformity with its policy of the centrality of ASEAN. The centrality of ASEAN, to those of our participants who don't know what it is the idea that ASEAN within the region is the center, it's a locus, that all decisions and all matters it must be involved in. It must play a leading role within. And the centrality is an idea that even the Americans, the Soviets, India, China, and all the regional powers, they subscribe to. So then we come to your idea that you say the fear of China is misplaced, that China is vastly misunderstood by the United States. You talk about the naval base that has just been completed in Riam in Cambodia, under controversy that the naval base is actually being occupied by the Chinese Navy, which is false. You then talk about the new Cold War, which can hurt a lot of people. The new Cold War again is between the United States and China and its allies on both sides. You then go on to the specifics of Cambodia's foreign policy towards Taiwan, citing that Taiwan, as long as it doesn't declare its independence, things will remain peaceful, and that Taiwan ought to subscribe, and that ASEAN and all countries ought to subscribe to the one country, two systems idea. You then move on to Ukraine and Cambodia's brave stand of condemning that aggression, the Russian aggression. You move on to Myanmar, where you explain the reasons why Prime Minister Hun Sen, Samdech Hun Sen, had visited Myanmar for which he got some criticism. You said that even ASEAN had invited the coup leader to a meeting prior to the visit of Prime Minister Hun Sen to Myanmar. All points very well taken. An extremely wide-ranging conversation. I'm now coming to the end of my summary. You then move on to the Indo-Pacific, a new concept in which India and the United States, Japan, and Australia are key participants. But you point out now that even the European Union has its concept of what the Indo-Pacific should be. What is Cambodia's position? Cambodia says that it can't take sides in any dispute. Cambodia would welcome any Indo-Pacific initiative that would lead to peace and would emphasize the centrality of ASEAN, the whole idea. Finally, we all are aware of the trouble that we've seen in the South China Sea, where there has been, of course, admittedly a great deal of aggression shown by the Chinese Navy there. But you have explained that a situation of tension cannot be allowed to exist. ASEAN has an interest in working towards a code of conduct. Cambodia is working hard, you said, for the adoption of a code of conduct. A code of conduct would then what it implies is that the navies that are operating in the region, international navies, in international waters, there ought to be a code of conduct of how they ought to operate in a peaceful manner so that the trade lines are not disrupted. So Cambodia has reached, you said finally, and I'm so happy to hear, after the long civil war and after, a country which had reached such a great pinnacle, an apogee of prosperity and an apogee of power, imperial power under the Angkor Empire, all that was kind of destroyed in the years that followed. But now Cambodia has again reached lower income level globally, those standards, and is aiming to reach the status of a higher income society in due course. And I wish you all the best in these in this endeavor. And the photos you've shown us, the contrast from the picture of the dome of Central Market, it's like a ghost town with a couple of soldiers walking in 1979 after the Great Civil War. And then to be juxtaposed with a nighttime picture of traffic jam in Phnom Penh. I had never seen a traffic jam in Phnom Penh in 1991. When we got there, Excellency MOULY, if you remember 1991, there were about only 50 or 60 cars.
Yeah.
Cambodia in 1990.
Yeah, only 15. It takes only 15 minutes you tour the city.
Yes. So now it's and then of course there's great development of the island and the master plans that we've seen. Is all a matter for great and deep congratulations, in which you have played a large role, especially in combating AIDS, which was almost an epidemic in that country, if I'm not wrong. AIDS had acquired really, it was more than in I think all of Southeast Asia put together, wasn't it? So with those words, I shall now conclude my remarks by again thanking you very much for coming and delivering this wonderful talk and enlightening us on so many things. With that, I will request if there are any questions from the audience. So the simple rules would be that if you have a question, you want to just give your name and where you work, or what you do, which university you are teaching in, etc., or which department you're from. But let me begin by asking, I notice that the senator from British Columbia, Senator Yuen, is here. And would you like to ask His Excellency MOULY a question?
Well, thank you, Dr. Mehta. I wanted to say to His Excellency that I really enjoyed his presentation. I will be in Phnom Penh in a few weeks, and I'm hoping to follow up with you. I will have many more in-depth questions together with my delegation of parliamentarians, and look forward to seeing you at that time. I'll stay on for a few more minutes to listen to the conversation. Once again, congratulations to Rising Asia Foundation, Harish and Julie and your entire team, and thank you, Honorable MOULY for your excellent presentation.
So thank you very much for your comment.
Harish, if you will give me the opportunity again, let me then put a simple question that is very close to my heart on the Indo-Pacific strategy, which Senior Minister has talked about. Canada is one of the countries now contemplating its Indo-Pacific strategy. We are told that it will be released in the weeks ahead. I am, on the one hand, hopeful about what the strategy might say. On the other hand, I am worried that it might go in the wrong direction. Minister, what advice would you give to the Canadian government as it puts the final touches on this strategy? What would you like to see in it?
Thank you for your question. In fact, I don't have any lesson to give to you, but as I said in my presentation, the 3 points that we welcome any strategy on Indo-Pacific. So first, if the strategy lead to cooperation and to building peace, this first, as I said, and the second, we will not support any initiative to form a bloc against any power. The third, we have to base on the centrality of ASEAN. That means I am not very involved in this issue, but the centrality of ASEAN, as Dr. Mehta has said, it should be with the cooperation of ASEAN, and then how to take, how to get involved on the issue. And we, as a member, we will follow the recommendation or direction or policy of the ASEAN. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. I will pass that advice along. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Yuen. I would request Professor Sanjay Kathuria from Georgetown University in the United States to ask a question or a comment. Go ahead, Sanjay.
All right. Thank you very much, Excellency, for that tour de force. Learned a lot. I wanted to ask whether the role of India in ASEAN as a, I know that there has been some dissatisfaction expressed about the, there is expectation, there is promise for India to play a much bigger role, certainly on the economic front, but also, in trade, connectivity, all the aspects of economics. But it seems, whatever I'm hearing, is that India always fails to deliver on that kind of economic connectivity promise. Where are the areas, in your view, where India could do much better in terms of connecting with ASEAN?
Well, first, for example, with Cambodia, cultural cooperation will be the first, because we have so many temples, and India is very expert in dealing or maintaining a temple. So one area, and second is the economic cooperation. So we don't see much investment from India in our part. So we wish that there will be more and more investment in the country, and also in terms of human resource, you have a very good university, school, technical school, etc. You have an advanced technology. You can have involved of forming the ASEAN member or student from Cambodia, for example, in your university, in Indian university, is also a good start for us.
Thank you for the question, Sanjay. Thank you, Excellency MOULY. May I invite Professor Julie Mehta to ask her question or a comment?
Excellency MOULY Yuen,
Yes.
I have spent 12 years doing this book on Cambodia, on the mythology, history, and politics, and how incredible the history is of the soft power of cultural export that Cambodia has made to the world. My question to you is very simple. In the 90s, when I spent so much time with Minister Nuth Narang, you might remember him, as well as, of course, Her Excellency Princess Upa Devi, MPE, and the 7 dancers, the Dean of the Beaux-Arts University in Phnom Penh, all of whom were survivors of the Khmer Rouge regime and brought Cambodian culture back. They were in dire straits as far as getting funds to keep the cultural aspect. Has that improved? Because from what I gather, it is still a very marginalized area which doesn't get the kind of importance that it should get, especially after, I think, Princess Bupa Devi's demise and Mr. Nuth Narang not being there anymore. How do you conceive the idea of resurrecting this greatest export that Cambodia has made to the world?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. I think more because of the economic development of the country, we can say we have more money than before. We are not rich, but we are better. And the government has provided not a lot of money, but enough of support to the cultural ministry. And the artists now are well demanded by the private market, by the market. That means they are asked to present or to show in a very to organize the show in the TV or in any public place more and more than before. So I think that this is the way that we have to support them. And since a few years now, the government has provided some what we call we upgrade those professors, giving them the title when with more incentive for the work they done in the university or the school of art. And I think this is the way that we had to do also in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie, for that wonderful question on culture, which again, of course, always remains a great export and a way that Cambodia projects its image internationally. So thank you for that. Professor Salikyu Sangtam, please ask your question. Thank you so much, or a comment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, His Excellency, for his wonderful lecture. And also, I thank the Rising Asia Foundation for this wonderful, distinguished lecture, led by our editor-in-chief, Dr. Harish Mehta. So thank you so much. My question is maybe it's a historical question that leads to today's. It's the historical impact upon ASEAN today and its relations to the current Indo-Pacific issue, as well as the issues between China, India, and the United States with regards to Southeast Asia. So my question is this, sir, His Excellency. For much of the Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, all of these countries today, if you look at the history, these countries have a fusion of cultural mixture from India, from China, from Arabia, and also from a later part in the modern century, the Western civilization. So it has always been like the historical trend has been such that these Southeast Asian countries has always been a fusion, a mixture of all these cultures coming in, intermixing because of trade. And what you see today as Cambodian civilization, or the Thai civilization, or the Myanmar civilization, or you talk about the Taviat in Vietnam, you see the mixture of Indian civilization, the Chinese, the Islamic. So my question is that, given that is the historical legacy, do you think that even though India, China, and the United States are right now, we can more or less agree that these three countries, for instance, United States, India, and China, they are trying to bring the ASEAN countries into their sides. But can be from, because you are a member of ASEAN, is it still possible for the ASEAN countries to maintain neutrality indefinitely, even when there is hostility between rising powers in Asia, China, India, and the existing power, the United States? So do you think that the ASEAN countries will indefinitely maintain? Is it right to assume? My question is it right to assume that the ASEAN countries will indefinitely maintain neutrality, given its historical legacy? Because that's the strength of the ASEAN countries. So I would love to hear your opinion, His Excellency. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. I think that the interest of the Asian country is to be neutral. The interest is, for example, let's say like that. When Vice President Harish come to ASEAN, the Asian member was surprised when she asked the ASEAN to join hands with the United States in opposing China. We said we will do what you want, but we don't want to take side. Each ASEAN member respond in that sense the same. Even Vietnam's supposed to be close to United States now, but Vietnam cannot afford to be against China. See, so they have to be neutral anyway, because more and more they do business with China, even they do the same with the United States. So I think even there rivalry between the two power, ASEAN continue to stay neutral. So this is what I can say. I say this because this is what Cambodian is behaving now. Thank you.
Thank you for that that very interesting question and an equally convincing answer. And this is a question that exercises all of us. How long can ASEAN continue to remain, to hold out, to keep these powers from influencing them? You know, will a point come when ASEAN just sort of breaks up and goes hither and thither? You know, so one hopes it's up to ASEAN how it does things. Is there any other question? I'm sure there would be a couple more. Yes, Professor Salikyu Sangtam has a question. Please go ahead.
Because Your Excellency, one more question. Because you're part of ASEAN, Cambodia, and I'm sure all the members of the ASEAN talk about India. I'm sure of it, and of course India is rising in power. Hence, India will have a topic whenever ASEAN countries meet. Now, my question is this: I would like to get your perception, how ASEAN sees India. So what can India do in order to enhance, kind of tell the ASEAN countries you can rely on us, something like that. So just my question is that. Thank you.
Well, I cannot answer in the place of other member of ASEAN, but as a Cambodian, we look at India as a giant, as a big guy in the region, and it was Cambodia who brought India to ASEAN. We are the first who helped India to become a partner of ASEAN. Cambodia, not from Cambodia, and I know that Cambodia, India have acceded to the status of I think a strategic partner or something like that of ASEAN. I'm not sure, but their degree of partnership. But one of the important position of India vis-a-vis India. So probably in the past, because India sided more likely with the Soviet Union in the past, even being neutral, but business have been doing more with socialist side. The reason why there are some hesitancies from the other member. But now India is a big power. India is the largest democracy. So I think we welcome India. So up to India, as I said, is they do more business with ASEAN. If they invest more with ASEAN, it will be benefit both from both sides. We will benefit from the good cooperation with ASEAN and India. So I cannot answer why there are problems in the past with India, but we are happy that India get involved with ASEAN, do business with ASEAN, and we wish that India invest more in the region. So this is what I can say.
There's a question from Urmi Sinha. Please go ahead.
It's actually Mr. Shomnath Sinha who is asking the question, and he's an extremely well-traveled corporate man. So let's hear your question.
Excellency, thank you very much for an excellent discussion today. Uh, we are in the company of eminent historians and people who are very knowledgeable on the subject. I have nothing to do with any of that. So my question is, as a common person, it is very interesting to, as you were speaking, to see how we Cambodia and India, we obviously have common threads from a historical perspective. You talked about it. The preference for democracy, when a very strong thread that you talked about, which is very much there in India. So these were all very positive things. But I was kind of also reflecting on your perspective on China, because for some of us in India, we have a slightly different perspective, and it was very interesting to see that, because we've, as you know, we've had some history of conflict between our two countries, which some of us are perceived as has been inflicted on us and not the other way around. So clearly there is some level of hesitation, and as recently as a couple of years ago, so as recently as that, we've had some difficult experiences. So our perspective of how we see China in terms of how it kind of probably is trying to come ahead, and we see that as perhaps as a bit adversarial, whereas when you spoke about it, your perspective was completely different. Do you have any thoughts on this? Why, because we are a democracy, we have common history, heritage, and all of that, and yet when it comes to geopolitical power, is that geopolitics, or is that something else? Am I missing something?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Our perspectives are based on our relationship with China, and we understand that in the past, China support the Khmer Rouge, and we understand this because of the Cold War, and so, but later, China understand that to develop their country, they shift the policy to the cooperation with the West, with United States, etc. And then it proved to be benefit for China. As I said, only with a few decades, they jumped from the third world status to the second economic power of the world. So, and also, if you look inside China, you can see that even though they are not like a Western democracy, but they are able to bring their people out of poverty. 100 million of people out of poverty. So this, and when Cambodia start with zero, we want to get support from the world. We received much support at the beginning from the West, from United States, but also sometimes we have some difficulty because there are also a condition attached to this assistance. For example, they put condition on democracy. They put condition on human rights, for example. But they know that no any country can implement or apply a perfect democracy. Even in the United States, you have Donald Trump who claimed that he won the election all the time. And no one, even in the United States, they cannot eradicate of the problem of human rights abuse. For example, about the Black Lives Matter, etc. So the relation with Cambodia now is based on economic cooperation. when we receive assistance from China, or when we get loan from China, what they told us, you get money from us and you invest where that can develop your economy. For us, as I said in my presentation, we need to improve, to develop our country. So any support will be welcome. We welcome, because as I said, on the 7th of April 1979, when Phnom Penh was liberated, there were only 70 people in the city, and there was no running water, there was no electricity, and the war continued until 1998. We start rebuilding really our country from 1998 only, at the end of 1998 only. So if China doesn't get involved in our internal business, they are good friends to us. But if, for example, United States or the West support opposition party, and they don't want to enter in the competition in the form of democratic election, because how they can pretend to be democratic when before the election they claim that they win the election, and when they lost the election they said that we steal the election. The same like Donald Trump in the United States. It is not our interest. Our interest is to improve the living condition of the people. That reason why we look at China as a good perspective of cooperation for us than the West now. Because the West put human rights, democracy as a barrier to support, to give support to us. So this is the reason why that we look at China as a supportive, as a good to Cambodia now. But if they ask us to form alliance against United States, we will say no, because it's against the policy, against interest. That is what I can say. Democracy means that first, start with peace, stability, and then go to election every time, every 5 years. In Cambodia, we have go election every 5 years, and improve the economic condition, improve the economy. Now we build a lot of roads, we build a lot of streets, we build a lot of, and when Mehta will come next year, he will see the difference. So that is why maybe from India, I don't know the perspective, but from Cambodia, we see our interest on the development of the country. So this is what I can say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, Somnath. Thank you, Excellency MOULY. Do we have one more question? Will you take one more question, Excellency?
Yes, by the way.
Is there another question from anywhere? Yes, Tohanshi, Dr. Tohanshi from Hong Kong, please go ahead.
Thank you for that very interesting talk by you, Minister, Your Excellency. You gave a very good answer about your policy towards China and how you want to be balanced between China and America and, stay neutral. But having said that, some people, especially some American officials, still perceive, rightly or wrongly, Cambodia to be part of China's camp and, to gang up with China against America and do what China wants. What do you say about such perceptions?
Well, they are wrong because we are not against United States. We are friends to the United States. We, as I said in my presentation, we keep a special interest to United States because they have opened their market for our product, especially the manufactured products. So if they don't get involved in our internal business, they will be welcomed with open arms. We will be a good friend to United States. But so far, if they involve in the internal business, in supporting the opposition outside of the framework of the Constitution, we will not be good friends to the United States. So this is the answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tohanshi. That was a very relevant and a timely question. If there are no more questions, I just wanted to ask one small timely question, and that is, you mentioned that Cambodia is heading into another election next year.
Yes.
What is that election, and how do you see that election going? And a little bit about, if you can tell us about your own political direction. I mean, how do you see yourself in what roles in the years to come? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Since 2007, I joined the Prime Minister Hun Sen party because in the Constitution, if you are not part of the government of the party or the winning party, you cannot be part of the government. And because I don't have any means anymore to continue my own party, so I joined the CPP. So I'm now member of the CPP. For the election, for the upcoming election, it is the general election. The people will elect the new deputy for the formation of the new government. So we hope that we will continue to win the election, even though there will be new party joining, part from opposition party. Like last election, there was 17 party in competition. So the next upcoming election, we don't know yet, but there will be many parties, as we are in the pluralistic system of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, for taking us up to the general election next year. We'll be all watching and looking at the election carefully. So with that, I think we have to bring this event to a close, and we hand you over to Professor Julie Mehta to deliver a comment and a vote of thanks to our distinguished annual speaker. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Harish. A labor of love, as usual, you've put through and got us Excellency MOULY Yuen for this spectacular evening. I must thank him for his talk, which has been marked by concision and with grace. And I must say, Excellency MOULY, for a politician and a minister in Cambodia, you have shown us that there is no equivocation in the question that you answered to Dr. Tohanshi, to the senator from British Columbia and Canada, in answer to the tricky question from Mr. Shomnath Sinha, and to Dr. Sanjay Kathuria. You were straight off the bat, and you told us what Cambodia's position is and why it aligns itself with China. The way that you answered Professor Salikyu Sangtam's question as well, and how you perceive the long association with India, your talk about Samdech Hun Sen going to Myanmar and asserting the need for peace without breaking the covenant of sovereignty for which Cambodia stands with ASEAN, your views on Taiwan Strait, that Cambodia believes in China being aligned to Taiwan, Taiwan being a part of China, you believing in Korea being together, you believing that Russia should not appropriate Ukraine. I think it has been a most illustrious and erudite talk. You have invoked someone like George Cedars from a past. You have invoked Professor Kishore Mehbubani from Singapore, whom we all know and admire. And I think most of all, you have got us thinking on the connection between Cambodia's role as a geopolitical player in the past. You've taken us through 2 millennia of tumultuous years of history, and you've brought us to a present today and gestured towards a future which should be better for all of us in the region and in the world. So unabashedly, I must say a big thank you and a vote of gratitude for what you have done for us today. And I also must thank the participants, the scholars, the people who are just interested, all the way from Indonesia to Canada to Hong Kong, and of course our Indian scholars, and our 2 wonderful technical wizards that both Harish and I are very, very proud of. Mohini Pradhan, who's a master's degree holder with honors, and Mr. Harsh Kumar, who is finishing his master's in Xavier's, St. Xavier's. Now, with that, I will say goodbye, Godspeed, and thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency MOULY. It was such a joy to see you after so many years.
Thank you.
We hope to see you in Cambodia next time.
My old friend Leng, how are you? How are you? Good to see you, Leng Socha.
You will
Yes,
be
no.
most welcome in Cambodia.
I know, Julian, I know Mr. Sochia from 1989.
One of our oldest friends and dearest friends.
I think both of us had more hair then.
yeah. Now no more here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your
Okay,
Excellency.
goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye and good night, everybody.